Yeah, that was me on my wedding day in 2016. I was 23.
So what happened?
I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. But before we do, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jack Danger Cross. I'm a 32-year-old trans man. I'm an artist, I'm married, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my story. Yeah, I was a petite young blonde girl as a child. This was something my mother was overjoyed about. She had beliefs about what that meant. She had plans for me. She had specific ideas about what I would look like when I inevitably became a wife and mother. It still plays music. I got it when I was a baby. My brother and I both got one. His was blue, mine was pink, of course. My head moves. Yeah, that's one of the first sounds I knew. Yes, this blanket. It was made by my mother while she was pregnant with me. Months of her time, every stitch by her hand. She had so many plans for me. She planned for me with all her heart. Yep, and I can't believe I still have these teeny little baby shoes that I had that my mother picked out for me before I could even walk. Bows and all. I don't know what to do with them. I have nothing to do with them, but I won't throw them away. Love and a plan. She had love for me, but mostly a plan, and the love was very conditional on the plan. Even from a few years old, it was all meant to lead to my wedding day. She orchestrated that with an iron will. And every Disney princess in the VHS catalog. You know, maybe if Ariel had married a girl, I'd have gotten out earlier. But the truth is, I was hooked on the true love story from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
I really think it's universally appealing to a child that's trapped with inadequate or unloving caregivers. Marriage becomes your ticket out. That's exactly what they want you to think. Find a nice man to marry and all of your troubles will go away. Then you'll be safe. The joke is, I did find true love, just not the way my mother wanted.
But you did get married. Did your troubles go away? Were you safe?
Oh no, not even a little bit. It all got so much worse. And I'll say this as a content warning for what's to come. I've been through a lot, and it can be a lot to hear for someone who has been through the kind of stuff I've been through, or for someone who hasn't been. It can be a lot to hear no matter what. So just bear with me as I tell this.
So your parents, they didn't seem like they were well equipped for parenthood in the first place. Can you tell me more about them?
You are correct. The only thing they were perfectly equipped for was to be perfectly abusive. My mother was fanatically religious with undiagnosed and unmedicated ADHD, very mentally unstable in general. She would go from wanting to have a party to bawling her eyes out in 30 seconds flat. She really saw no issue with this or ever sought help. She really just chalked it all up to her bubbly girlishness, which I kind of clock as just baseline misogyny. My father is a deeply unwell and abused person who became wildly abusive himself. He was sexually assaulted as a child and then sexually assaulted his brother when they were kids.
You have a family photo of your father as a child, his parents, his younger brother, and a photo of his father's brother, the man who started it all.
It's generational abuse. My great uncle to my father to me. And who knows how much farther back than that. My father really is the same man as me, just one generation prior, poorly parented in rural Billings in the 60s and 70s. He had the same sleep disorder that I have. Never was medicated either. He's gay too, like me, but he went to a Christian college, so he decided to pray the gay away with a couple of kids in the suburbs instead. And that drove him crazy. He started physically abusing my mother and moved us to rural Montana where he could isolate us and get even more abusive. And that's just when things got so much worse. But we'll get to that.
So from birth, you were being force-femmed by your mentally unstable, unmedicated, religiously fanatical mother, and then moved to rural Montana by your equally unstable, closeted gay father.
Yes, and the most painful part is that I am a man, and I always have been, and no one would listen. Not that I had the words for that when I was 3, but I knew it then. And, I was born here, right outside of Federal Way in 93, was going to View Ridge Elementary School in the early days while all of this was happening. The thought of someone intervening before I was taken from Washington State still haunts me. My life could have been so much different.
So your mother found out that your father is gay. What was that like?
Catastrophic. My mother is deeply homophobic. I think due to her own repressed queerness, but my mother is violently anti-gay. She holds radical Christian beliefs that gayness is a sin and deeply believes in conversion practices. She was disgusted to find out my father was gay in the first place, but she was even more irate to find out how poorly he was praying it away.
Because she found evidence. She found out that he was doing things behind her back.
Oh, yes. He was in online chat rooms, sending and receiving videos, participating in kink. He would take his whole ass family to Walmart to meet some guy in the bathroom for sex. Quite literally, my mom and her 2 small children would be waiting outside the Walmart bathroom while my dad had sex in there. There's no nice bathrooms at Walmart. What a scenario for an afternoon delight. Yes, and frankly, it's frustrating that gay people are so often pushed into infidelity and illicit behaviors to express themselves because it's wrong and it does hurt people. My father shouldn't have been in that situation, and homophobia and conversion practices put him there. Essentially, I was orphaned by homophobia. It can have generational effects. It can destroy lives and families. That's why homophobia is so wrong.
So you mentioned that your father is also a pedophile. Tell me more.
Yes, and I really think my mother is too. I think they've acted on it in different ways, but I see her desire to possess young children for her own gain as largely the same thing. She still sexualized me as a child, even if she never directly touched me herself. But yes, my father did. It was textbook grooming, slow, sustained, invisible to my mother. She only registered any of it when he'd moved on to my brother.
How did that unfold?
She found photos he had taken naked on my brother's bed, evidence of grooming and plans, things he had done to me, but that didn't matter to her just when it started happening to her precious son. That was when she decided to act. She first told her pastor at her church, and they didn't get any other officials involved. They just gave her the advice to confront him herself for some reason. Royally bad advice.
I imagine that went rather poorly.
You could say that. But yeah, she went to the pastor, not law enforcement, not CPS, the pastor. I sometimes wonder what he's doing now, maybe running a podcast or something.
So this all led to your parents' divorce. How did that go? How old were you?
I was 10. My father found out that my mother had found out, and he had a go bag packed and a gun. He was going to kill her and run. And so he drugged my brother and I that night with high doses of Benadryl. So I'm woken up in a drugged haze in the middle of the night by my crying, screaming mother, who's dragging me out of bed and trying to get my brother and me out of the house. She drove us to a friend's house that night, where parts of the story were told to us, but I was certainly not prepared to handle all of that at that age.
What happened next?
Well, the cops were called, and my dad went to jail for a night before he got right out the next day and stole all of the money out of our joint accounts and split. My mother was now a penniless single mother with 2 kids, no job, and no prospects. And boy, was I well and truly screwed. And I was left alone in the clutches of my unwell mother in rural Montana to be force-femmed to her heart's content. Not that anyone in rural Montana would have stopped her. That's what they're doing to all the young girls around there. They're just wives and mothers in training, being groomed until they're breeding age. And it leads to worse. My mother sexualizing and feminizing me so young, it's for the male gaze, so men notice. They see it as an invitation. The hair, the makeup, the clothes, the shoes, everything to make a young girl look like a sexually available woman. And that is why most women experience sexual assault. That is why my older brother's friend got ideas when my mother thought it was so cute how much attention he was paying to me. She encouraged it. He was almost egged on. I'm sure in some ways he thought he was doing what he was supposed to do when he came into my room in the middle of the night and assaulted me.
There's a photograph of you, your brother, and your father. And your brother has a toy gun, and you have a Polly Pocket.
Yeah, my brother got the gun, and I got the Polly Pocket. I needed the gun. That's the story of my whole childhood in one Christmas morning. The one who could have defended me got the weapon. The one who needed to defend herself got the plastic princess in the plastic house. Everything I was going to survive was already decided then by who was handed what. By 11, I had been assaulted twice. Once at 4 by my father, the naked Barbie, the drunk visits to the bedroom, the whole bit. And then once at 11 by my brother's friend who'd been watching me under my mother's approving eyes. She loved how much attention he paid to me. And still no medical attention, no adult intervention. I slept every night with the TV on, with the lights on for years and years and years. I was so incredibly traumatized.
But yet, you were in high school at the time, dealing with all of this.
Yes, I guess I can personally attest, in my case at least, to my high school experience being very like the show Euphoria. Not like that's a good thing. The lighting was similar. Of course, their teenagers are adult models, but mine was all shot on flip phones by hormonal teens, and the drugs were much worse. But yeah, drugs, sex, parties, abuse, assault, crimes, suffering. That was high school. People really wonder how I was able to sit through these leaves, and I'm like, man, I was experiencing emotional and physical pain on a level you couldn't believe before I was even 18. But I was also making art the whole time, filling sketchbooks, painting badly, learning how to draw hands. Underneath all of it, there was an undeniable bright core. That was Jack. I was already him, I just didn't have the words for it yet.
And you knew you were trans at the time?
Well, not exactly. I didn't even know what trans was until I heard of Caitlyn Jenner for the first time years later in college. I knew I was gay, though. That is another minor tragedy running underneath all of this. I have a deep love of women that I've been yearning to express my entire life and didn't get to in my young life. This is one of the first girls I loved, and another. And a redhead who obviously had quite the impact on me going forward in my life. Later in life, there's the woman I was actually falling in love with while I was shopping for wedding dresses to marry a man. And then the same woman helping me put on heels to marry someone else. I was in love with women the whole time, and that was the problem. Everyone could see it. And so I was forced into compulsory heterosexuality in order to hide that. And so I never got to express the love I had for girls while I was a girl. My mother couldn't stand the idea of me being a lesbian, so she forced boys onto me quite literally.
So not only were you dealing with all of this trauma, but you're also neurodiverse with disorders that you were unmedicated for and uneducated about until well into your adulthood.
Oh yes, I mean, it was something my mother would threaten me with. She basically spun a tale for me that if I was diagnosed bipolar, my life would be over, I'd be some loser with no prospects, I'd be on medication that would make me unable to do art, I wouldn't be myself anymore. She made it seem like a horror story. She would tell me my father was bipolar like a threat. Like, don't you dare be like him. Look at who he is. Look at what he did to you. Look at what he did to me. And that was all just really rich coming from her.
The irony isn't lost on me that your mother was a special education teacher.
Oh yeah, everyone was allowed to have autism but me, especially boys. It's actually incredible. A special ed teacher who could not diagnose her own trans, autistic, bipolar child. Someone should study her, peer-reviewed. But she was very excited when I found a nice autistic man to marry. She had plenty of empathy and compassion for his autism, just never mine.
So your mother was the main reason that you were never diagnosed or medicated for any of your mental disorders or for your transness.
She could never see me as autistic, and she could never see me as a man, and she would certainly never see me as an autistic man. That was a right only my husband could ever have, never me directly.
It seems that just like your queerness was something that caused you to not fit into the narrow box of wife and mother that your mother had arranged for you, that the same thing could be said about your neurodivergence.
Exactly, unfortunately for me. But I was still there somewhere underneath it all, the part of me that was willing to go through whatever it took to live.
And now, back in Washington, as an adult, past the age when anyone was supposed to protect you, you keep hearing versions of that same non-help. What does that sound like?
It sounds like, I'm so sorry you never crossed paths with a mandatory reporter. It sounds like, that's really hard, but there's nothing I can do. It sounds like wait lists. It sounds like eligibility criteria I can't quite meet. It sounds like the same stuff I heard when I was a kid. I'm not their problem. It's just said by professionals with a lanyard instead of teachers with a sneer.
You're still hitting walls.
Every week, the disability application I've been waiting on for 7 years, the employment assistance list I've been on for 4 months and then was taken off of, the doctors who won't take my insurance or a private practice, the landlords who see my face and won't rent to me, or the employers who won't hire me, all of the strangers who see my tattoos and piercings and decide who I am before I even speak, and keep thinking that even after I speak. Every kid is supposed to have parents. Every adult is supposed to have a system. When neither works, the answer from adults in power has always been the same. You're not my problem. Save the children turns out to be something pedophiles scream. And help is available turns out to be something you have to be the right type of person to receive. When someone tells me I seem angry, of course I'm angry. I want more than pity. I want action.
You told me that you really found the end of your ropes with Melissa and started to angle yourself towards Jack at your brother's wedding. Tell me what that was like.
I was around 6 years into a compet marriage. We'd traveled across the country, across the world. There was Vegas at the beginning, there was Vegas at the end. Then the two of us with my blood brother and his wife after their wedding. 2 couples, now 4 divorced people. My whole 20s were spent trapped inside a woman's life I didn't want, watching a marriage slowly die. And it was slowly killing me, living in a rural farmhouse in Helena, Montana. I was like a walking shipwreck after everything that had happened to me. I was still playing the Melissa charade, of course, but it was starting to seriously crack at the wedding. And then my father gave a speech. I hadn't seen him in a really long time, and it really killed me. I walked away after and just completely bawled my eyes out. That was when I realized fully what a life as Melissa was going to cost me. My father had wrecked his life pretending, and I was doing the same thing on a smaller scale. Being Melissa was going to kill Jack, and no one would ever have even known that Jack was there. I decided that night that I was not going to let that happen.
Elaborate on the farmhouse in Helena. What was that like for you so many years into an arranged marriage?
Oh, it was a living nightmare. I didn't sleep at all. Ever. Life was suffering. I was completely mad. It was like everything that had ever happened to me was all crashing down on my head at once. It was like my life was haunting me.
How did that manifest?
Sometimes in full psychotic episodes. One of the worst ones was after many days of insomnia, a panic attack in the middle of the night. I was ripping my clothes off in pain, delirious, and I ran out of the bedroom through the side door into the hayfield, into the 10-acre hayfield that we had on our property, and I was just running into the hayfield barefoot. You know, my husband chasing after me, trying to calm me down. I had completely lost myself to my illness and trauma. I was doing anything I could not to kill myself.
That's deeply painful. What kept you here?
A combination of things. Art, brotherhood, and true love.
How so?
Well, in more detail, I'll start with art. Art has been a necessity of mine since I could hold a pen. I think I made this when I was about 3 years old. I was in elementary school, primary school. It's called Bunny Castle in the Sky. I still have my mom's handwriting on the back. She helped me fill out the paperwork so I could submit it to a little art competition. It was the one thing my mother couldn't fully colonize. She could tell me what to look like, who to marry, what to believe, but she couldn't completely control what I painted. For me, making things was a defiant self-expression. And brotherhood with the man I'd been married to, who became my actual family once we let each other stop pretending. That version of love turned out to be more durable than the marriage. He's still one of the closest people in my life. And Eric didn't fight me when I left the marriage. He stayed. And that's when I learned what brotherhood is. The person who stops being your husband but doesn't stop being your family. And true love. The kind Disney sold me on at 4 and denied me for 29 years. And when I finally met the woman who saw me, the man, not the mask, I understood what the story was really about the whole time. True love isn't the reward for good behavior. It's something you build with someone every day. It's earned. When those 3 things arrived for me, it's like I could start to finally make out the shape of Jack, like when you get the right prescription for glasses. The image of him stopped being blurry.
So after all of that, how did you find Jack?
Little by little, but he was there all along. Jack is the solid part of my core identity that I've been coming to know over these long years of suffering. Jack is the part that persists no matter what. The part that can't get worn away. I finally came all the way out and started my hormonal transition at 30 years old. I basically held up my family medicine clinic at gunpoint for the testosterone, not literally, but not entirely figuratively. My provider signed the paperwork the way someone might sign a hostage note. I had already waited too many years for my medicine, and I was not going to wait any longer. It's never too late to come out, but 30 years was really long enough for me to wait. Testosterone changed my voice, my body, my scent, my hunger, my sleep, but what it revealed was me. Jack didn't come from a vial of testosterone. Jack came out from underneath the illness that had been piled on top of him. And the version of manhood I arrived at is not the one my father modeled or the one my mother feared. I'm a man who loves his wife. I'm a man who seeks to know and create beauty. I'm a man who cries at his own writing and laughs at his own jokes. I'm a man who's vulnerable with his family. I'm a man who's trying to build something with nothing.
And your sleeves, those have been a big part of becoming Jack for you, yeah?
Yes. I saved my tits and got some sleeves. These have been my gender affirming surgery. I always knew I wanted them. My arms felt so bare, so wrong my entire life. I always hated them. I knew I needed something there. It was like we were taking off a layer of skin and uncovering what was supposed to be there when we were tattooing them. This is just what I always felt like I was supposed to look like. And I don't know, I just have always felt like I needed art on my skin. And that's what this is. It's the story of my life. This is the Montana arm, the blood moon nighttime scene. I've got a moose in the water and a campfire and some bear grass back here. And this just really represents the night of my life, which was when I was in Montana, when I had some of the worst stuff happen to me. And it taught me a lot about who I am. And it was a hard time, but it was also a time I found beauty in. And then this is my Washington arm, which represents like the sunrise of my life. And I have a family of orcas in the water, which represent my found family. And I have scarlet paintbrush, a flower native to the Pacific Northwest. And this just really represents the potential of where I'm going and what I have left in my life to look forward to. And so it's just really important to me that I have these because I've been getting tattooed since I was 12. Yeah, all designed by me. The one on my wrist I used to have that I got when I was 12 says free fall. It's covered up now. But yeah, my life kind of always has been.
So what's in the cards for Jack after all of this?
I'm glad you asked. I don't have the whole answer. I'm still making it. I've made a lot of art in my life, but I've never had the space to stay in one place long enough to really build. I'm trying to do that here, where I was born. I face a lot of prejudice for the way I look. It's unfair. I look this way because I'm celebrating still being alive after surviving some terrible odds. When you see someone expressing themselves in their body the way that I do, learn to see stripes like these as earned.